How do you pronounce your last name?
Ehrhardt.
Like Amelia?
Just like Amelia.
Okay,
No
perfect. Do you fly?
No,
Okay.
no. I used to claim a relation to her as a kid because, you know, who wouldn't, but-
Hey, why not?
Last week was our Ontario Sheep Farmer Convention. It's an annual convention and it's full of a really good lineup of speakers and producers, and we have a banquet at night. It's just a great forum to get together and celebrate our industry in Ontario. And this year I was over the moon excited for Dr. Richard Ehrhardt, who I have done a video previously on not all his research, on a little bit of his research on ewe lambs, because it changed the way I started looking at ewe lambs and reproduction and what I should be looking for, because I was just starting to develop my own ewe lambs. So he's been a huge help for me. So I followed my good friend Lyndsey Smith. She works for RealAgriculture. They're a media company. She was on media duty for the whole convention for the 2 days. And she let me follow her around with a camera because I really wanted to get Richard's kind of notes on what he presented at the main session. He gave 2 talks. So I'm going to do a video on both of his talks because she interviewed him twice.
I'm Lyndsey Smith with RealAgriculture. I'm joined now by Dr. Richard Ehrhardt with the
Michigan State University.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, with Michigan State University.
Yep.
We are at the Ontario Sheep Convention, and you spoke twice today. And on the first, we are talking about, you know, achieving really great success with out-of-season breeding. I was really interested to see that you started with the rams, because I think we forget about our rams sometimes. So what are some of the tips for making sure that those rams are going to be ready to work out of season?
Yeah, there's a couple different things you can do to make sure they're working well. I think one of them is to make sure they're not exposed to high temperatures. So there's environmental cues that you want to make sure you don't have overheating. There's also the possibility of kind of mimicking fall lighting conditions with we call it like a light control program, which is possible to do because you can do that in a small number of animals. Like you only have a relatively small population of rams on your farm, so that's feasible to do. It takes a little bit of work. But one of the main things I talked about and emphasized was the need to feed them well. So they need to be, their nutritional program needs to be elevated, so they need a little more feed, especially before they're exposed to ewes, because they're pretty focused on breeding during the mating season, and so during the out-of-season period, that's even more important, is what we found.
And were there breed differences for the rams?
Yeah, there are breed differences, for sure. There's genetics that, you know, certain breeds of sheep are truly seasonal breeders, certain breeds of sheep are kind of in between, some are relatively aseasonal, so it makes a big difference, the genetic component as well. Yeah.
Now tell me a bit more about the light program, because of course, you know, I'm not far from Quebec. Quebec uses lights for synchronization quite a bit, but this is probably the first I've heard on the ram side. So tell me a bit more. The 120 days?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little disclaimer here. The lighting program for rams is not something I work as actively on, so I'm kind of reporting a little bit more on what they've learned in other parts of the world. But yeah, you basically are trying to create a lighting program for rams so they think it's like the optimal photo period. It turns out you can kind of trick them into doing that if you give them light dark cycles that are either 30 or 60 days apart, and it takes a while for them to kind of get to the point where they're thinking it's, for example, October all the time. And yeah, so that's kind of the essence of it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Now you did talk nutrition. You also spoke, of course, about even a basic breeding soundness exam.
Yeah.
So let's say you're maybe not having the vet out, but what could a producer be doing as a once-over on their rams ahead of the breeding season?
Yeah, sure. That sometimes that's a practical consideration. You know, small flocks or lack of veterinary service in certain areas. So just doing a simple palpation of their testicles can tell you a real lot. You know, they need to have a tone, a consistent tone, kind of like I say, like kind of similar to the feel of someone's forearm, not soft. And you should be able to distinctly feel the epididymides at both ends of the testicle. And you can tell a lot from that. You know, it doesn't screen out some infertility, but it's a good screen. It's probably, I'd say, 2/3, 3/4 of the problems you'll pick up just with palpation, and that helps a lot.
All right, now you did, of course, when we are, rams are 50%, but then we've got to talk about our ewes. So we do know, of course, that there are, better out-of-season breeders and more truly seasonal breeders. How important, though, is nutrition out of season?
Well, I think it's pretty important. It's important really anytime, first of all. Animals, people have known this for years, but we call it flushing, where we feed the animals better prior to mating, and that really improves the lambing percentage quite a bit. What we're learning is it's also really important out of season, probably at least as important, maybe more so. That's kind of active area research. I have a hard time saying that definitively, but take home is, it's important. Flushing effect is real, and if you increase the amount of calories basically sheep get, they'll have more lambs, and it's feasible to do. I mean, even like 2-3 weeks of improved nutrition is a relatively small investment for a really big return. So we see improvements of, well, I'd say typical improvements would be 25%, but they can be up to 50% just with improving that nutrition, and so that's very cost effective.
I think one of the things that, we do hear about flushing, and we do hear about, keeping our ewes in good body condition. How important, though, is that, say, first month of pregnancy for feed?
Yeah, it's also important. The challenge you have there is you want to make sure that the embryos that are produced by this additional nutrition, the extra eggs and the resulting embryos implant. And if the animals lose weight during that period, it's a concern. They'll tend not to implant nearly as efficiently. So we need to keep them from losing the weight that they gain. They don't necessarily need to continue to gain a lot of weight, but we just don't want to suddenly put them on a diet. And that can happen. Like, people will sometimes have the flushing program separate from the breeding program. They might do flushing like before they turn the rams in, right, by nature. And then when they turn the rams in, maybe they stick them in the back 40 with not as much feed. And that you have to avoid, that kind of situation really, otherwise you'll lose some of the embryos you gained.
All right, thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome, my pleasure.